I built this garden wall 2 years ago, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do the same using basic tools and materials in a matter of a weekend. I'm going to show you how I went from this situation that my wife complained about for 8 years to this beautiful gem that adds curb appeal and ups the value of my home. Let's do it. Now, before I walk you through the build, let's talk about some essential components of your garden wall so it's going to last a long time and look good. Now, here you can see a cross section of the wall, and you have the blocks here, and underneath it you have a part that a lot of people don't know, but it's a packed gravel base that acts as a foundation for the wall that's going to keep it nice and flat and level for decades. Now, if you don't have this packed gravel base and you just put your blocks on top of dirt, within a matter of a year, maybe 2, your wall is going to be very uneven, it's going to be warped, it might be tipping over, it's going to heave, and it's not going to look very good, it's not going to last. And this is going to be a 4-inch layer, you want about 4 inches. You might be able to get away with a little bit less, but 4 inches is great to shoot for. Then you have your blocks, which are going to be tied together with some construction adhesive. You may need some drainage, I'll talk about that in a minute. And then you're also going to notice that this first block is going to be buried at least 2 inches under the ground level. Another thing I want to mention is that if you're building your wall on a hill, you're not going to want to angle your blocks. Instead, you're going to want to step them like you see here. So you have the packed gravel base below it, then this red line would be the ground level, and then the blocks are going to be stepped as you see here. Now, I'll talk about the cost of this project in a minute, but let's go ahead and jump right into the build. First, you'll run a level string line to use as a guide during installation. Start by hammering some stakes where you want the front edge of the wall to line up. Position the string where you want the top of the wall to be, and then pull it tight. Then you'll grab a line level to get the string perfectly level. And make sure your line level is accurate by flipping it 180 degrees and then checking for level again, because these are cheap tools and they're often not accurate. Later, this string line will be used as a guide to help you build a perfectly straight wall. It will also help you to dig to the appropriate depth, and it will help with a few other steps that I'll demonstrate soon. Once you have the string up and a plan, it's time to dig. So get the ground wet and use a flat nose shovel for this step. Now, ideally, you want your trench to be twice as wide as the blocks you're using. However, for a garden wall that is only retaining a few inches of soil, like in this case, you can get away with just making your gravel base a couple inches wider than the blocks on each side. So just make sure you give yourself enough room to work when installing your blocks later. Since my blocks are 7 inches wide, I'm just digging to the width of my shovel, and that should be perfect. For the depth of the trench, you want to shoot for at least 6 inches below ground level. That will allow you to have a 4-inch gravel base and to bury the first block by at least 2 inches so it's locked in place. Use your string line as a guide to help you dig your trench at a consistent depth. And once your trench is deep and wide enough, pack down the soil using a hand tamper. Now it's time to add the gravel base, which again is the foundation of your wall. The gravel base is sometimes called paver base or type 2 gravel base or crushed stone. Whatever it's called where you live, add it to the trench in 2-inch layers and tamp each layer down thoroughly with a hand tamper. You want the gravel base to be damp so it compacts really well. Spray it with a hose if it's not damp already. This base material can be found in 50-pound bags at pretty much any home store, or you can buy it in larger quantities at your local rock yard if you're building a bigger wall. Now, as you can see here, I'm stepping the wall because the ground is sloped. So I'm only adding gravel base to this bottom step, and then once I have the bottom layer of blocks installed, I'll add gravel base to that next layer, to that next step, and make it even with the top of this bottom step. Now, you can also use your string line as a guide to get your gravel base close to being level. Once it's close, go along with a 2-foot or 4-foot level and get the gravel base as level as you can. This doesn't happen instantly, so take whatever time you need to make it level and pack it down well, because again, this is what determines the quality of your install. The more flat and level it is, the easier the next step will be as well. And now it's time for the first layer of blocks. Start on one end of the wall and position your blocks using the string line so your wall is nice and straight. Now I'm starting from the corner here so that if I have to make any cuts later, it's on the ends of my wall where they meet another surface. Now as you lay each block, you're going to need to level it and use a rubber mallet to set it in place. Now this is time consuming and in some cases it can get pretty frustrating. However, having a bag of leveling sand can help make this process quite a bit easier because making small adjustments with sand is way easier than with the gravel base. Now you'll want to level the blocks side to side and front to back. Additionally, you want the tops of the blocks to be flat and line up with each other and be level as well. So you'll need a torpedo level and a longer level like this 2-foot level that I'm using here. So get it as level as you can without driving yourself crazy. Take your time and let the fact that the next layer is going to be way easier help to soothe any frustration you might have. Now you might be wondering about the blocks that I'm using here, about the size of them and which size blocks I recommend. Now you can use a variety of different blocks and I'll share the specs of these blocks in a minute along with the total cost of this project. Now this next step isn't required, but it's definitely a good idea. As you can see here, I'm removing a block every couple of feet and then I'm adding this white 3/4 inch gravel to act as drainage. And that is to keep any water from pooling up against my house. I'm also adding dirt in front of the wall and packing that down with a scrap piece of wood to lock the blocks in place so they don't move around throughout the rest of the install. And then it's time for the second row of blocks, which you're gonna find very enjoyable because it's so much easier than the first row. Now if you're stepping your wall like I am here, you'll first need to pack the gravel base so that it's flat and level with the top of that first row of blocks. Now as you place your blocks on the second row, make sure that you stagger the joints. You don't want any of the seams lining up. You may have to adjust your pattern in order to accomplish this. Once the entire second row is in place, remove each block, making sure to keep them in order so that you can easily reassemble them, and then add construction adhesive to each block and press down firmly to lock the blocks together. Now this is an important step and should not be skipped. Now you can use any construction adhesive that works with concrete, and for a list of recommended products and tools, visit handymans.startup.com/garden wall. And once you get to the step, just glue all the way until you get to the paver base and then install that second layer just like you did the first layer on the first step. Now as you can see, I've also left some drainage in this second row. This will avoid any puddling behind the wall. You'll probably need to cut a couple of blocks to get them to fit on the ends. And the easiest way to do this is to use a mason chisel, chisel a notch all the way around the block, and then give it one good hard hit and it should break off cleanly. And this works surprisingly well. Another way is to use an angle grinder with a diamond blade to cut the notch and then break it off with a mason's chisel. And of course, you can also use a concrete saw if you have one lying around, but I doubt that. The rest of the wall is pretty simple. Simply continue on with each row just like the second row until your wall is complete. Fit the blocks in place, make any cuts that are necessary, then remove each block, keeping them organized, apply some adhesive, and reassemble. Now, you can build a wall up to 3 feet tall with these blocks. And this is a great weekend project because it's small enough to complete in just a couple of days. But if you're not physically fit, then you can easily break it up into a few more days into smaller chunks of time. Now, the blocks I'm using here are the Rumblestone series made by Pavestone. They come in a variety of sizes, which you can use to create interesting patterns. For more details on the blocks, including how many to order, dimensions, and other information like that, visit handymanstartup.com/garden wall. And the total cost of this project was about $500. So that's $400 for the blocks, and then another $100 for adhesive and the paver base and a little bit of sand. Now, one question you probably have is, can this design be used as a retaining wall? And the answer is yes, but I would only recommend retaining up to about 1 foot of soil. If you want to retain more than that, I would recommend learning how to build a proper retaining wall, and you can do that by watching my step-by-step video on how to build a retaining wall that I'll link to in the video description and right up here. Now, as you can see, this is a huge improvement over what I had. It's not the cheapest option for a garden bed edging, but I'm confident that it will last for decades. It's not going to be like wood where it's going to rot and then 5 years later it's going to look terrible. This is going to look great for many years. And at the time of recording this video, it's already been installed for over 2 years and it's still perfectly flat and level. For more DIY and landscaping videos, check out these videos right here. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan Perry, and I'll see you in the next video.